Hi, and welcome to Dip In and Out with Lucy, the podcast that opens up the discussion around domestic abuse. I'm very fortunate this morning to be sitting down with Matt. Matt is an advocate. Matt is also a podcast host himself, and many other hats, but I think it's probably best to hand over to Matt and he can explain a bit more about what he does. Good morning, Matt.
Morning, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Very good.
Good. Well, yeah, I'm on a new journey, I suppose. My background, I left school and I was a diesel fitter for almost 12 years and I joined the police, which I always wanted to do. And then I had an amazing 18 years in the police. The last year and a half was horrendous, which I'll come on to. But then now I'm going down the self-employed route. I have my own company called Lived XP. So based on my own lived experience, whereby there's some mentoring with young people in schools. There's podcast delivery, which we're starting tomorrow within the school. So we're giving young people a voice and a choice around topics they want to discuss, but teaching them how to do podcasts as well. Um, I do some public speaking whereby I talk about my experiences, which also has a different hat to it, whereby I'm trying to help organizations understand what if you've got internal investigations, how to keep them fair, how to keep them impartial, and how to not have what happened to me that can end up destroying people, I suppose. So yeah, the podcast that's with a kick called Everymancan, which I am a massive part of and a director of, and we basically are trying to help men find what works for them. So
Yeah.
through Every Man Can, we have various initiatives such as a sauna, which is on the beach, which is in the woods with an ice bath, which is going really well. We have the podcast, and there's the Every Man Can training, which is a lot of trauma-informed stuff. I'm not the expert in that. There's two other people who do that, but the overall goal is to fund, be paid for the work that we do, but also then put that money back in to help fund mental health programs and mental health initiatives. So yeah, a lot going on.
That's amazing. And because you're covering so many aspects, and that's the thing as well. One of the things I notice that I get asked quite a lot is, especially if I'm delivering any kind of sessions on the other side of things that I do, is, well, are men victims as well? And can men be victims of domestic abuse? And I think there's sometimes this misconception when, from my perspective anyway, when I'm delivering, for me, that's why I called the other side of things I do, You Don't Owe Me. And that's why the podcast is Dip In and Out, because it's for everybody, is that it does impact everybody. And I think that's a misconception that men aren't victims. Well, and the sad thing is, obviously, and I know you're going to talk a bit more about this, is there's underreporting across the board. We know that people are scared to report. But I think sometimes as well, for men in particular, we've seen a lot in the media, is that they're even more afraid to speak out because of this idea around masculinity, what it looks like to be a man. And for that reason, they're not speaking out. And then obviously there is that impact on mental health. And again, people sort of tend to kind of go, but how can domestic abuse affect your mental health? Well, how can it not? you
Yeah,
know, how can the two be linked? Well-being and domestic abuse. Well, of course they are, because if you're psychologically abused, if you're physically abused, whatever the abuse is, financial, etc., then it is going to affect you in that mental sort of state. But so yeah, so a bit more about your own journey as to where you are, because I think what you're doing is incredible, and you're
thank
obviously
you.
doing a lot. But where it all started.
Yeah, so um I mean, I say this when I speak, and and there's I always think there's three sides to every story. There's my truth, someone else's truth, and in the middle. And if I was to sit and tell my story, and there was any element of truth to it, then it would be completely disingenuous. And I suppose I could be really massively open to ridicule. But it all started in around COVID, really. So I was in a relationship for 7 years with a girl, and I loved her dearly. Like really loved her. There was a lot of issues with herself, which is unfair for me to talk about, but they manifested themselves into some self-harm, some alcohol issues. And I noticed in and around about that time, she was working for a domestic violence support charity in Teesside, and I noticed a change in the language. Everyone seemed to be a perpetrator. Everyone was a perp. He's a perp. He's a perp. And there was a lot of a real shift in the language and the understanding, and I started to look from afar and think, all right, okay. But then ultimately, it started to affect our relationship, and she joined the police. I was serving as a police officer in Cleveland Police. Very proud of what I was doing. I had an amazing job. I worked in covert policing and a lot of telephone work, a lot of murder manhunts, and a lot of real what people would see as exciting stuff, but quite tiring. And I was away on a national course um, at the College of Policing, and I was there for 2 weeks. It was a residential. The first week, there were a lot of issues at home. I could tell that she wasn't right. There was a lot of to and fro. And I came home that weekend, and everything was fine. And I'll come on to this, but I've since learned that she would use sex as a real weapon and
Yeah.
a real tool, and I was ridiculously physically attracted to her. So it was a real difficult scenario. So no matter what went on, I was drawn back into that. So that weekend, there was a lot of that, and then I went back to work at the College of Policing, and ultimately she left me, and she left me during the night after she texted me saying, "I'm going to get some sleep before night shifts. Love you. Hope you enjoyed your bike ride," etc. Next thing, I get a phone call. She's in tears, highly intoxicated, some self-harm, and she'd left. And so I came home the next day, distraught. She'd gone, and yeah, then began the difficult process of obviously your relationship ending after 7 years, not
Yeah.
understanding it, no contact whatsoever. And I was trying to reach out to her to try and discuss things and talk. And she came round to my house. I knew it was strange. It was in the middle of the afternoon, and she came round in a uniform, but in a civilian court. And she said, "Look, work, I want to speak to you. A welfare meeting I've had has gone wrong." And I was, I couldn't get my head around what she was trying to say. But with my experience in the police, I knew anything domestic violence related. I thought, "Oh, here we go." And then it just started this whirlwind of 8 to 9 months of utter chaos, is all I can describe it. So basically, I was brought in for a voluntary interview around controlling and coercive behaviour, and I just sat in disbelief at what was being said to me. So there was comments such as, I told her she couldn't wear makeup for work in case she attracted the attention of males at work. I used to tell her to go to the gym because I thought she was fat. Um, so comments like that. And when I was in the interview, I actually said to them, well, I know what them comments were. So I used to say to her, why don't you go to the gym? She was a different person when she went to the gym
Yes.
mentally. So it
Mentally,
really
yeah.
helped her. She was a size 8 to 10. So for me to say she was in any way large was ridiculous. The makeup was around. I remember one morning she said to me, I don't want to put my makeup on. I can't be bothered. And I said, you don't need to. You don't
Yeah.
need to wear makeup. You're beautiful as you are. So it all got really twisted and really dark, really. So I defended myself, told them, opened up to our relationship and told them that I had been assaulted by her in the past. She'd smashed my phone up. She had thrown a glass at my head, which missed and smashed against the wall. There was a lot of psychological sort of abuse going on, which was things like, it's your fault I drink. I never drank till I met you. Um, it's your fault. I'm like this. It's your fault. And I used to think, God, like, and then she'd say things to me around my two children. So I've got two wonderful kids and she'd say, you spend too much time with your kids and not enough time with me, and all of this. So this continued. So I was told I could go, and then I was hit with the bombshell. I was going to be served with gross misconduct papers, which I'd never, in my whole service, I'd never been in trouble with professional standards. I'd had a great career, a lot of commendations and a lot of praise, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. So then the interesting part of it started to unravel around female involvement from female supervisors. So I was told by my federation rep that they were originally. Her female inspector, who she'd spoke to, had put a crime report in for rape for myself because my ex-partner had told her that there was times when we would be in bed together. She didn't want to sleep with me, but she did. But I didn't know that, and my female inspector, well, this female inspector, sorry, she put crime reports in for rape, and I think when the domestic violence unit had got hold of that, I was told it was refuted quite quickly, and that was dropped. But then you can imagine, as a dad,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
a proud officer, a dad of a daughter as well, I was in bits. So that investigation went on for about 9 weeks, and I've since learned that they were trying to go to CPS with a no victim prosecution
right.
because she wouldn't give a statement, she wouldn't hand the phone over, and um, I got a phone call saying that there was no criminal case to answer, and because I'd spoken in my interview that professional standards basically said there was no disciplinary, and let's start to have a look at what could happen. So that was a really difficult time because in that 8 to 9 weeks, obviously I had a house full of her stuff, and I
Mm.
had no conditions not to speak to her. Um, I was worried sick about her mental health, and put my own to one side completely. And I was still under that
Yeah,
protect her, protect her, protect her, that gaslighting. And then it got to the point where I had to go around. She got herself a little flat, and I had stuff to drop off. And there was contact, and I was worried about her, and she was sending me messages, which I've kept, and I still have actually, because I'm still petrified that
mm.
it'll one day raise
Yeah,
its head again. So I've kept everything. And she said the police have ran away with this. I didn't mean I didn't want any of this to happen. This is not what I wanted. I love you. I miss you. So I was then like, right, okay. So 2 days after I was told there was no investigation, I was at home one evening, just cooking tea, and got a knock on the door, which is rare at my house. Opened the door, and there was three officers from the domestic violence unit. One being a male inspector who I was friendly with. I knew him. I would talk to him. They entered my house and said that I was being arrested on suspicion of harassment, um, and that I had to give them my phone. Um, And I'm not gonna get into the legislation
yeah,
around arresting, and I'm not gonna
yeah,
get into slating the officers. But the comments from the officers were, "We know this is a crock of shit, but we have to do it."
yeah,
And
yeah,
I was really not happy. Got taken to a different force area, which is what happens. So, if for those that don't understand, if so, I worked at Cleveland at the time. So, to save embarrassment and to keep things neutral, because you know people that they take you to a separate custody suite. So,
yeah.
I got taken to Darlington, which is in County Durham. I was put in a cell for numerous hours in the night, and a solicitor arrived for myself and sat me down and said, "Right, it's third party reporting again. There's no statement from her." So what transpired was her female inspector again had gone round to do a welfare check on her, and I think she'd shown them a ream of messages between us. And obviously on WhatsApp you can delete.
Yes,
You want to
yeah,
delete?
yeah.
I'd kept everything and screenshotted everything, and but again, she hadn't handed a phone over, so I was then subjected to a full interview again, whereby I was honest. I just said, "Look, I've been dropping stuff off. This is what's going on." She's telling me that this wasn't meant to happen, etc., etc. So I was then released on bail, with conditions not to contact her indirectly, directly, and all of that. And I did say to them in the custody suite, "She will breach this tomorrow. She will breach my bail." So because I had no phone, I was then left at the end of my road holding, I laugh now, but holding a plastic bag with my laces in,
Yeah,
my belongings, my keys, and I just I just felt like it. I felt like the people who had been arresting for 18 years, and the people who had, the people I was trying to protect as a police officer, I just felt lost really. And then the parting comment from the inspector who arrested me was, he wound his window down and he just said, "Matt, don't do anything daft," and drove off. So I was left without even like consideration around. could we call a family member? He hasn't got a
Where's
phone.
your support
Contact his kids.
network? Yeah.
Where do we do it? So I came home um, and drank probably three-quarters a bottle of rum. And I woke up on the kitchen floor with my dog, who there was a puppy at the time, um, just sat next to me, like obviously concerned. And I woke up next day, went and got a replacement SIM card and put it into an old device. And throughout the day, my ex tried to ring me on four occasions. So she was breaching my bail. I never answered. I just reported it every time. Nothing happened to her. On the evening, I had been to my daughter's football and we were sat in the kitchen and I looked at my back door and I thought, oh, there's Alfie, which was her old dog. So
Right.
there's this dog at the back, and I didn't click. I just looked and
Yeah.
thought, why is Alfie there?
Yeah.
And then she appeared at the back door with a backpack on. Just she looked lost, totally lost, but
Mhm.
intoxicated.
Yeah.
So I calmly got rid of her and I just said, look, you're breaching my bail, you need to go. She drove here as well. So I contacted my federation rep, who was not the best, and he said on the phone, he just said, "Oh, she rang you again." I said, "No, she's turned up, and I told you she would." I said, "What you doing to protect me?"
Because what could have been in that backpack, for all you know?
Well, I often think that. I don't know, and I've often guessed. It's crazy. The frightening thing about the breach of the bail was if she'd have said he's told me to come round, I would have been sat in Durham prison on remand, 100%. And when I rang and then nothing happened to her, nothing. Just I
No
thought, well,
caution, nothing.
I thought she's surely going to get arrested or something, nothing. And then um, about 3 or 4 weeks later, I was told there was no case to answer criminal and no case to answer disciplinary because I've been served further gross misconduct papers. So, in and amongst all of this, I was coaching at a local football club. I've been there for years, and a letter had gone in to the club, handwritten, from, I believe now, from her brother-in-law, who I have confronted about it, and given his reaction, it was from him. I was a danger to children. I was under investigation for being controlling, coercive harassment. I shouldn't be around kids. Everybody should know. So then I had to have a meeting with the FA, with the North Riding, with CADA to explain myself again. So my life now is like, I'm quite a private person, but my whole life is now being played out in
And the
what I think
repetition of repeating the same thing over and over again. I've seen that
awful.
so many times with victims and survivors. It's that exhaustion of repeating yourself and defending yourself over and over again.
Yeah. So so the second incident that happened, I was told there was no case to answer. I thought, right. So on the Monday, I went into work and I sat with my one of my angels in my life, Becky, my old inspector. Without her and my other boss Emma and a couple of other people, I don't take this lightly. I wouldn't be here. And for everything I have against the police now, they are, and I've told them they're just like they've helped me save my life really.
Mm.
So I spent the morning with her figuring out how I came back into work. Left work, came home, grabbed my road bike, did a 4 hour ride on Strava, put it on Strava because now I'm paranoid.
Yes. Yeah.
Now I
Evidence, everything. Yeah.
100%. So I
Yeah.
used to walk in pizza shops and stare at and do this at the CCTV camera. Honestly, and I know you
Take a picture.
just
Yeah.
I'm here. And it was really ridiculous. I turned on Google location. So in my job, all I did was phone work. So I knew what could be retrieved from phones, what deleted can be treated. And I thought, right, I'm going to have to be on this. Then I went for an evening meal with a friend of mine, Idris, and we went to an Indian, and me and him had an Indian together, came home. The Wednesday morning, so we're now 2 or 3 days after I've been told there's no case to answer. It was 6:30 in the morning, and I was getting ready actually to go into work as like a phased return.
Yeah.
Why? I still look back at that and think, why are we going in? Like,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
was my career. I thought I have to go in. So 6:30, knock on my door, domestic violence unit are back at my door. And now this is like the October, so like investigation. So it was like May to October, and I just was aghast. I was like, "What now?
Yeah.
What now?" And this is where the male and female thing comes in, I think. So they sent two females and a male to arrest me, and the female arrested me. And I always think, and this is not against them, but I always think, and I've dealt with this in the police, when you're dealing with a female suspect or victim of domestic violence, you would always try and keep it impartial. So you would not surround them with men.
Men. Yeah.
You would always try. But in every interview, there was a female. Obviously, my ex-partner spoke to her female inspector, who then spoke to her female chief inspector, who then went to the female superintendent. And I'm not saying it. I do believe it was a sexist investigation, but there's just that thought of just why
If
was
you flipped it on its head, then how
yeah.
would it work out? Yeah.
Yeah, so I got arrested basically that morning again for assault. So I said to them, "Look, when is this assault meant to have taken place?" And they said, "Oh, on Monday." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, so I told them, I said, "You can't take." I said, "I'll show you now on my phone," and they wouldn't have it. So I got arrested again, taken into custody at Darlington, put in a cell for 6 hours because I then learned that they hadn't spoke to her. It was third party reporting.
Again.
Yep.
So,
So it was all beginning to unravel. So when she joined, she had a tutor who was a male, and I believe they were having an affair, basically.
okay.
Which I'm not going to elaborate on because that's not for me to talk about. But he'd gone round to her house for a welfare check, and she had a red mark on her face, and she had told him, "Matt's been round and hit me."
Right.
He's a police officer, so he reports it. I get arrested without any.
Question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any, yeah.
So back in for interview again, and now I I pride myself on how calm I'd kept myself. I was really I was polite in custody. I thought, just don't be a dick. Just, it's not a nice situation for everybody, this. So just, and then I left the interview room and they took me into this, what I'd only describe as a cleaning cupboard at the police station, and professional standards were waiting for me and they suspended me. And I lost the plot. I just lost the plot. I was awful to the two. But again, they suspended me and they sent two female professional standards officers. So I lost. I wasn't very nice to them, and I later sent them an email apologizing because it wasn't their fault. But
We
I'd
all
lost.
have a limit. We all have a
Oh my
limit.
God,
Yeah.
I'd lost the plot. So I got suspended and sent home. They tried to bail me again, but obviously the domestic violence unit hadn't explained that last time I was bailed, she breached everything. So the
Mm.
custody sergeant said, "Well, I wasn't told that." So I was released under investigation again. And the following day, my suspension was lifted.
All that stress, all that worry,
So
literally
my suspension was lifted, and basically within 48 hours, I was told again, no case to answer, criminally or
professionally sort of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was like, right, come back to work. It's all done. Come on. And I'd started a job which I needed security clearance vetting for. So I had to go through all the vetting procedure again, and I passed everything, and I went back to work. But at that Christmas, I I think because of everything that had happened, I hadn't really dealt with the relationship breakdown.
Yeah.
And throughout it
Yes.
all, my
Yeah.
main concern in every police interview was, is she okay? I think she's going to do some harm to herself. Oh my God. And I never thought of myself. And I now have learned that that's the years of just the gaslighting and the abuse, I suppose, that I'd gone through.
And
So,
yeah, and she's trauma bonded you to her because she keeps drawing you back in. Yeah,
well, yeah.
exactly.
So, that Christmas, this isn't very nice, and I won't go into too much detail, but I was up the hills. So, where I live in Middlesbrough, Middlesbrough gets a real bad rap, but like we are 20 minutes from the North Yorkshire Moors, 20 minutes from the beach, and I use that area so much. So I was up in the North Yorkshire moors and I climbed a tree and I thought, right, I took my top off, I tied it, my dog barked, and I looked at my dog and I thought, oh, the kids, everything. And then I got down and I was just crying my eyes out and I bumped into a woman who I didn't know who she was and she said, are you okay? And I just said no. And then I saw her pick up her phone. I thought she was ringing the police because I knew how it worked. And I just, the next day, I'm quite proud of myself. The next day I rang my boss, Emma, and I just said to her, look, I need some serious help. It's got bad.
Mm.
Um, and I was undergoing counselling, which was appalling. Um, and there was a private pot of funding that they released, and I got a different counsellor, and she was just amazing.
That's the problem with counselling as well is not, and I say this to so many people, if somebody says, oh, that didn't work for me, like, yeah, that may not have worked for you if it was person-centered or if it was CBT, but something else might work. And that's a really good point you've made is, it's not a one size fits all. Everybody's
Oh,
different. What works for one person may not work for another. Yeah.
100%. And this is where I think, so I was told you can have 6 or 12 free sessions. I mean,
Yeah.
when I got the private counselling, I saw her every day for nearly a year,
Yeah.
and 6 or 12 sessions isn't going to break the back off anything. And I didn't connect with the counsellor, but so basically I went back to work for 9 months and I tried. I would sit in the car every morning and just I didn't want to go in. And it was the first time I thought I can't go in. I always remember I went in one day and the police station that I worked in was quite quiet. So up on the first floor, you didn't really need to go up there unless you were coming to speak to our
Yeah.
office. And there was 4 professional standards officers followed me in, and I was thinking, oh. Anyway, I got outside the office and I just lost it. I said, "What do you want from me now? Like, what have I done?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was sweating, and my friend Claire was just sat looking at me, and they went, "We're just here for a meeting. Like, it's nothing to do with you." And that's the level I was at. I was just so paranoid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then this is the bit that just tipped the edge. So part of my counselling was my counsellor said that I should ask for a review of
Mm.
everything. So this female chief inspector did a review, who I got on with really well actually, but
Yeah.
I don't know. So we got in this meeting and she went through it and she mentioned Wayne Couzens about 6 or 7 times in my meeting, and I sat there and I said to her, I haven't done anything wrong. Like what Wayne Couzens has done.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what?
Are you trying to make a comparison here? And if you are,
But,
wow.
but the problem was the Wayne Couzens thing kicked off in the March of 2021. This kicked off in the May for me. So the police were
So fresh in everyone's, yeah.
and I don't remember this, but I think I slumped against a wall and my Fed rep tore into her, and I could see everyone just like looking in the room. And then the next day, my boss rang me and I just said, I'm never coming back to work.
Yeah.
And ultimately, over the next 12 months to a bit longer was the medical retirement procedure because I started to have really bad dreams. I was dreaming about going to murder scenes that I'd been to, for example. And whilst I was there, I was getting arrested, getting blamed. Deaths that I've been to, that was all reappearing. I was getting blamed. I was fighting in my sleep. I was jumping up at the window. I was any car that went. The hypervigilance was ridiculous. It still is. So I was diagnosed with complex PTSD as a result. And when you talk about repeating your story, so I had to repeat my story 9 times to medical professionals.
Wow.
And I actually think, looking back, that time was probably more traumatic than the events, being
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I was medically retired from the police, and I'm on the journey that I'm on now. I've just left Middlesbrough FC Foundation, which were brilliant for me because they give me my confidence back. They allowed me to, be myself again, and well, not myself again, but build something different and have some
Yeah.
trust in me and show me that there are people who are trustworthy, I suppose. But I think to be 46 and medically retired it's sad really. And I had an amazing career and I don't miss an ounce of it now. I don't miss a minute of it.
I mean, number one, I think it's incredible for you to be able to share your story. I'm really proud that you can come on here and share your story because the awful thing is there's so much in there that goes on in so many cases. And from my own experience of working in a domestic abuse charity, this is where we're falling short constantly of individuals in terms of the legal systems, in terms of support longer than 6 weeks, in terms of repeating themselves to multi-agencies over and over and over again. And this is where society is failing people like yourself. And the fact that there isn't this, well, hang on a minute, I'm getting all the shit, I don't mind swearing. I'm getting all the crap. But actually this other individual is not being held to the same account. So,
100%. And I think we touched on it at the beginning that men are ashamed to come forward. I think that's true.
yeah,
But I also think men, they're not good, they don't get heard, and you're not heard. And no matter what I did or I said, I made mistakes throughout all of that. I shouldn't have kept in touch, but I was so drawn into the drama of it all, and trying to understand the behaviors was impossible. But I think men, you're not heard and you're not listened to, and
yeah,
I've experienced it as an officer arresting people,
yeah,
and probably I've made mistakes looking back now, through my career, and I've probably arrested people with thinking, oh, well, I have to arrest them, and actually, you know, it's just a real sad thing, and I'm not having a go at this campaign because having got a daughter, I think it's massively important. But the Vogue campaign is amazing, and I think when it was first launched, amazing. But I do see now that it is allowing people to hide behind it, I think. And
right.
it's become that powerful that, like, my ex, she was a domestic violence support worker, then joined the police. And by
Mm.
the way, is still in the police.
Yeah, still has a job.
So she knew the wording, she knew what to say, what not to say, how to get a reaction, how to not. I've dealt with kids, young men who I've, supported through coaching. My son's friend, he came to me a few years ago. He was 15, wanted to leave his girlfriend, and she'd said, "Well, if you leave me, I'll just say you've sexually assaulted me."
Yeah.
So it's not me having a go at the campaign. I just think that there has to be a change in attitude and behaviours around its violence against everybody.
Yeah.
And for all men, I would dare say, in a domestic violence situation, are probably more physically violent. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not. But having been the victim of both physical and emotional, the emotional was more. The
Mm.
physical wasn't so much with myself,
Yeah.
but the emotional abuse, it has just killed me really. I read a quote yesterday and it was really interesting. Popped up on my Instagram. It must read my mind, Instagram, I think. I think it just reads my mind rather than what I'm searching. But it said something like, whilst you're trying to help someone who doesn't want to be helped, you are destroying your own life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I found it really powerful because all I wanted was that girl to be well. And
And then, yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I hope one day, and I hope she is now, because the torment that she was living with that I witnessed was awful. But for someone to love someone like that and trying to help and support them, but then ultimately, when I look back and reflect on it now, I've been totally and utterly gaslighted. I've been, the victim of a lot of emotional abuse, and I think for a lot of men, it's a real struggle.
Yeah.
So who do
Yeah.
you go
Especially
to?
when, and we're very similar ages. I'm 46, coming up for 47. And, we grew up in a
Not
time
so
where we
well
didn't,
going to me.
we grew up in a time where we didn't talk about abuse. We didn't know what domestic abuse was. It was something that didn't affect our lives, our families. It was an otherworldly problem that only affected certain people. And I think that's a stigma that has to be removed as well, is actually it can happen to anybody from any demographic, from any level of society. And we need to get this idea away that it does only happen to certain people. And you're right, the one thing I've noticed, and I do get this a lot in terms of LinkedIn messages is I feel guilty because I still have feelings or emotions for that person. And I will always say is, but your emotions were genuine. So the reason it's so hard to move forward a lot of times, A, you can't believe what this person has done to you, how they've impacted your life, how they've treated you. And the emotion, like you say, the emotional abuse lasts a hell of a long time,
Yeah.
if not forever. And you learn to kind of move forward with it day by day because it will be there, but it's there as a reminder of what you've overcome. But I think, for me, I will always say to people, but your feelings were genuine. Therefore, of course, you're going to worry about that person. Their feelings aren't genuine because they're wrapped up in themselves. An abuser chooses to abuse. They choose to perpetrate. They choose to put themselves and their own needs before anybody else's, whether there's children involved, etc. And I think that is a real difficulty that doesn't get talked about a lot for victims and survivors. Is it will take a long time to get over those emotions as well.
100%. And there's not a day goes by that I still, I'm in a new relationship now and she's amazing. She's fantastic. But the privacy I keep to myself now is like, I'm so, I don't want my life playing out in front of anybody, like my private life. But every day, there's not a day goes by. I don't think, why have you done this to me? Like, but do you know what? Someone somewhere, and I think it's my grandma, right? I know, and I do, and I just so when it all happened, a big thing. So Richie, who I do Everymancan with, he was a real rock for me, and he said to me, Matt, I can't believe how calm you're being, and I said, well, there's two strands to that. If I start kicking off and getting angry and showing, well, one, I'm not like that.
Yeah.
I'm not. I can rant and rave, and I have a good whinge and moan about a lot of things because getting an older man now. But I'm not an angry person. I don't fight. I don't, any shouting and bawling, I don't really react. I just stay quiet and go, have you finished? Can we
Yeah.
discuss? Like, so that one, it's not me. Two, once I do that, and this is where a lot of men are victimized is, well, there you go. There you
You've
go.
shown. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah,
kicked off.
yeah,
Now we see it.
yeah.
And I think, there's a rhetoric with females that it's like, yeah, cut his clothes up, shot his clothes, like your friends will, and
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
throw his clothes, he deserves it.
yeah.
A male does it, and it's completely different. And there's a lot of conversation to have around that, and that's a different thing. But I remained really calm, and I was brought up a Catholic, and I was dragged to church till I was 16. I still remind my mum of it all the time. I say to our mum all the time, like, did I have
We're
to,
very similar because yeah, Catholic
did
as
I have to
well.
really keep going to church? And but I'm not a devout Catholic. I don't believe. I'm quite spiritual now, actually. So I delved into Buddhism
Ah,
for some reason. I found a clip on YouTube, and it was a Buddhism video around karma and around remain calm, and then karma will deal with everything else, and other people's emotions will start to show the true colors. And I really got into it, and it really, really settled me, and it helped me. So when I go on my walks, which is my meditation, I've tried meditation. I've tried sitting, I can't do it.
oh, I'm like that. I'd have to keep moving, listen to something, but keep moving. Yeah,
So
yeah,
walking's my meditation. And that's
yeah.
another thing I say to people, like when people talk about meditation, just find what your meditation is.
Yes, yeah, yeah, definitely.
So someone somewhere, I think my grandma has shown me signs. There was early signs before this in the police where I was getting a bit, is this, it's getting, but nothing really where I would have left. But I know now that I had to get out the police and I had to get out that relationship. And there were signs leading up to all of this that I ignored, and I would never have left that relationship, probably because I knew what would happen. I was
Mm.
scared of the aftermath, I suppose.
Mm.
But in order for me to do both, to find peace moving forward, I think someone somewhere has went, well, we've give you the signs. We're going to make this awful for you because you're going to have
Yeah,
to both at once.
you have to get uncomfortable to then
Yeah,
move. Yeah,
you're going
yeah,
to have
yeah,
to leave both at once. And this is a big life lesson now. This is a big test for you now. And I think now I'm happy with that. That's
yeah,
what I'm settled with. Whether it's right or wrong, or people might watch this and think, what is he on about? But that's what I'm settled with. And that's a big message that I will always say to people is even if you don't speak it out loud, try and find the reason why this has happened to you.
Mhm.
Because what that gives you is some peace.
Yeah,
Never going to
absolutely. Yeah,
solve, it's never going to heal the wounds. It's never going to solve what happened. It's never going to let you have an understanding of what that person's done.
yeah,
But it just gives you that little bit of peace and goes, right, okay, I'm out of both now.
yeah,
And now,
yeah.
I'm working for myself. Financially, I'm all right.
Because say, look what you're doing now, and you won't be doing any of that if it wasn't for, and nobody wants to go through what you went through. But without that, you wouldn't be where you are now, helping the people you're helping.
But more importantly, I'm helping my kids lost a lot of me during that time. Like I was present, but I wasn't. I
Yeah,
was, we went to Teesside Park once, which is like a retail park, and we went for coffee. It was towards Christmas, and I saw her with the guy,
yeah.
and I just cried. I cried for about 3 hours. I was just heartbroken. And this is even after everything that had happened. And my kids lost a lot of me. And when I went for the job at the MFC Foundation, I said to them, I can't work weekends, I can't work nights. And they said, oh, why? And I just said, because my kids, and I explained, and they appreciated the honesty. And my daughter she plays football at a real good level, but there's a lot of traveling. And if this hadn't have happened, I couldn't do that for her.
No, no.
So one message I will say is, for whatever people are going through, there are blessings that come out of it, and and what you've got to try and find your truth of what the reason for this happening is.
Yeah, I love that.
You-
I love that.
And I think it's really important because it's helped me find a lot of peace. And now, my son's coming up 18. I hardly see him. He's with his girlfriend, or he's doing whatever, or hungover, or whatever.
Yeah.
Me and my daughter have a real powerful, strong relationship that has been built up by sitting in the car and chatting and having open and honest conversations. And, you know, just look at what's around you and take them positives and find the peace. Because if you don't find the peace, you're going to kill yourself.
You are. And you know what's so true is I say this a lot when children are involved, and children will say, but I love both parents. If they're the child that's in the middle of both
Yeah,
parents,
yeah.
you've got a perpetrator parent, you've got a victim parent, whichever way around it is. And in the past, what I've said is you can love both parents. Is absolutely, that's what you're a child that you can love, but you don't have to respect both behaviors. If somebody is displaying behavior towards you that is not acceptable, you don't have to accept that. And I think that's what, because otherwise we're bringing up a generation of kids who are going to be very bitter. Well, that person did that to me, and then they become the adult that turns into that bitterness of that happened to me. Yes, it did, but it doesn't have to define your future. And you're right, it's finding that peace and finding the reason as to why it happened,
Yeah.
and to take that peace from it. And I think that's why you're so grounded and rounded in what you're doing, is because you haven't taken it to that level of having that bitterness. And that's what people need to be able to have in life, definitely, especially when you've experienced something as traumatic as this.
Do you know what? And people think I'm crazy when I say this. I genuinely hope that she's found some peace as well, because the torment she was putting herself in and will do again to other people if she doesn't heal. And that's the
Yeah.
sad thing. And I think as an adult, when you've suffered, I didn't suffer childhood trauma. I was blessed. I haven't. And this is the most traumatic thing that's happened to me. And I always say that don't compare your trauma to other people's trauma.
No.
It's their trauma. So
Yeah.
it could
Yeah.
be, you get broke into. I've seen burglary victims never recover,
Yeah. Yeah.
never recover.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you leave that house and go home, and as a police officer, you might not think about that, but that's their trauma.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I think accepting your trauma is hard, but as an adult, so childhood trauma, I always think as an adult, you're either going to live your life miserable and
Mm.
cause that pain onto other people,
Mm.
or you stay on your own and don't heal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I always, I look back now and I think at that time, throughout that period, my ex should not have been in a relationship because of the damage it causes. And anyone who's got that sort of trauma and that, everyone has bad relationships where you're a bit of a dick at times and you're tired and you're in a mood. I get that. But I just think as an adult that there comes a point where you've got to go, right, I need to either sort this out
Yeah.
or I'm going to live my life in a quite a miserable manner, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking and listening to people like you that, clearly have been through something that could quite easily have made you very bitter, very angry, um, not wanting to move forward. But I always find it so, I always use the word inspiring, but I do. I find it inspiring when people can take that. But I need to come up with new words. But when they've gone through something so traumatic and then turn that into something that helps others, because through that trauma we can all become quite selfish and think, well, that's happened to me, that's my problem, that's my issue, it didn't happen to you. Like you say, and everybody's trauma is different. But by saying, actually, what I'm going to take from this is I'm going to try and help other people so that they don't feel the way I did, and they don't have to, like you say, be slumped against a wall, feel like you're at life's over, climb a tree, all those things that, and we've seen it in the news recently about, obviously domestic abuse, suicide rates. And it should never come to that, because there is somebody out there that people can relate to. And this is what I love about this podcast, is it's got everybody on it. And that's the whole point, is I want to give everybody that voice to say, actually, this is my story. Well, this is my story. Or I'm a professional and this is how I can help you. And I think what you're doing is incredible. And I think you've got a lot more to do yet. You're not done yet.
I tell you what I am finding though, like with the public speaking, because of the subject matter, people are a bit, ooh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
actually, the story is the story, but it's the story afterwards of like, the healing and finding your peace with things. And, I just want to help organizations recognize things in their own staff. So if you've got male employees who are suddenly working over more, or they're coming in
Agitated and
back at
stressed,
the
and
pub
yeah.
again and
Yeah.
everything, it might not be domestic violence,
Yeah.
but it's worth asking the questions, everything all right at home? And,
Yeah.
we don't, because women are very, very good at coming in and talking to the friends and colleagues.
It's
Men are
just
just,
sensing, isn't it? You're right, it is. It's those friends and family, it's those work colleagues saying, I did an episode with a psychotherapist a while ago, and she's amazing. And she was about how she would approach it now. She'd been in that situation, and she's like, I totally handle it differently now. She knows more. And as much as she thought she could solve all the problems, and I know that person's bad for them, and she was saying now it would be more a case of, actually, I can just sense that there's something not quite right. And if you want to talk, I'm here. And I think that's what we need to do, don't we? We need to be prepared to listen, not necessarily have the answers, because we don't have all the answers. Even when we work in this area, we don't have all the answers. But if we listen, and very often the victims and the survivors are the ones who have the answers to what their issue is and how to move forward. But yeah, definitely.
but when a man talks, listen, because it might
Yeah,
be that one time that they are telling you, and you
yeah,
might never ever get that again. Because I've learned from my own experience that once you try to open up and someone interrupts or shuts you down, I ain't
that's
telling
it.
you again.
Yeah. Well,
So
hopefully I've not interrupted you a lot, have I?
no,
I hope
it's
not.
been good. It's been nice and a good old northern chat.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Because I always feel better. I know it sounds daft, but sometimes I think, God, I've listened to them back and I watch back. God, I sound so northern.
I do that in our podcasts. I'm like, and I've had to really learn to like just sit and listen instead of going,
Yeah.
but,
But we are who we are. We've got every right. Every right. Oh, Matt, I can't thank you enough. Thank you.
no, honestly,
I always
thank you
hate
for
to
having
say I've
me.
enjoyed it, because it's not an easy conversation. But that's the whole point, is we're trying to make this a conversation that everyone can be part of and everyone can listen to. So obviously, thank you for what you do, and just keep doing it. Keep doing it.
And
Yeah.
yourself. You're doing great things yourself.
Oh, I'm sure this won't be the last time we'll meet again.
Yep, 100%.
Oh, Matt, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Lucy. Take
Thank
care.
you. You
Bye.
too.
Where